Hello, JuiceIT. I'm Jaron Cohen from Microsoft. I look after the go-to-market team for all of Microsoft's 17,000 partners in Australia. These are partners that service millions of customers from every coast to coast. But today I'm going to talk to you about modern management. And as our CEO Satya Nadella put it, we have seen over 2 years worth of digital transformation in the first 2 months of COVID alone. From remote teamwork, learning, to sales and customer service, we are working alongside customers every day to help them adopt and stay open for business in a world of remote everything. Securely managing devices is now even more critical as your customers, demand the flexibility to work everywhere and anywhere. Microsoft has seen over 29% growth in modern management, powered by more than 160 million seats of Office 365 sold globally. The global scale and security of the Microsoft Cloud is enabling organizations like yourself to deliver these modern management services more productively. In a recent Forrester report, we saw over 171% return on investment when our customers combine modern management with modern devices like Surface. Certainly exciting times ahead. Now let me hand over to Daniel from Microsoft and Brandon from Data3 to tell you how Surface and modern management is going to enable your workforce to be more productive.
Thanks, Jaron. I'm really excited to talk to you today about Microsoft Endpoint Manager and modern deployment with Microsoft Surface. My name's Daniel. I'm a Surface specialist in the Microsoft team. I help our customers realize the best potential with Microsoft Surface using modern deployment. And I'm really excited again to talk to you today about this topic because I think it carries the most benefit for our customers when thinking about their goals as a business in the long term. So we'll get kicked off. Now, modern endpoint management is a term that we've been using for a little while now, and to really clarify, we're going to go through exactly what endpoint management is, what endpoint manager is from Microsoft, and some of the reasons around why you might transition from traditional management solutions like using an SOE, an image, those tools you might have used in the past, to what we would consider a modern platform using Microsoft Endpoint Manager. Now, Endpoint Manager is a set of technologies based in the cloud that enable our customers to deploy and manage their fleet of devices from distance. So effectively, we have a bunch of tools here, including Microsoft Intune, Configuration Manager, and some other really great, unique endpoint management tools bundled in the one place in Microsoft 365 that can enable your organization to reduce overheads from staffing or time costs with deployment, all the way to increase agility with managing and deploying applications and devices at distance. One of those tools as well is DFCI. It is a tool implemented first for Surface that enables you to manage and deploy your firmware on Surface from the cloud all in the one place. It gives you the ability to secure your device right from chip to cloud, and we will talk about that to the end of my piece. And it is a unique tool on Microsoft Surface right now. But to kick into it and to really think about this platform, I like to phrase our tools when looking at this dashboard. It gives you the ability to look at your security platform and its relationship to the software running on your devices in your fleet. It can give you an idea of the feature updates amongst your fleet as well. So in the past, if you have been considerate of the Windows version and the testing that needs to occur before you deploy a new SOE, you're able to set up unique rings for deployment for Windows version inside Configuration Manager, or at least Endpoint Manager. You're able to view how those updates have been deployed out and picked up by users within the time frame settings that you require. And of course, you can push them to have a required date as you need to. Having this all in one place really gives you the tool set to understand the health of your fleet, and it really gives you better control, especially when you might not have the ability to put your hands on devices and triage in person. Now, that device configuration interface management tool that we were talking about before is really part of that zero-touch UEFI management tool set. You can see in here as a real quick heads up, something that I was alluding to before was the ability to manage that firmware at distance and even make changes on devices. Some of our customers have policies around how USB ports work on their devices. So for security's sake, you might not even want your device to recognize the USB ports on it. So you can even turn them off from this toolset here, and your Surface device won't even recognize them. Same goes for webcams, etc. Now, in a traditional environment, you might need to get your fleet of devices in person to deploy a new Windows version on. But with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, using modern deployment from Microsoft, the life cycle of a Surface device in your organization might look really different. And to sort of frame that, I think it's really best to think about a working organization to go through those various stages with you here today. So to start out, you might have been working with Data 3 and thought about Microsoft Surface and Windows Autopilot, modern deployment with Microsoft 365 as being the tool set that works for you, and you've enjoyed the pitch from us and you would like to get it running. So your organization decides to invest in Surface devices using Autopilot to deploy from the cloud. First up, you're able to put your devices into your Intune environment. Now, there's two ways that you can do that. You can farm the necessary information from devices and put them in a file format that Intune understands, and you can upload those into the cloud. Or you can have Data 3 get that information and put it into Intune for you, ready to go. That means that if you would like to associate a user with a device so that that user will see their name when they first go to log on, you can. It's a very simple process to associate that into the cloud. And so when your tailored solution built by Data 3 and yourselves is ready to deploy, those devices on their way can be configured or set up in the cloud, ready to be deployed to at a moment's notice. So that tailored solution takes a little bit of work to set up at the start. You're building your policies and packaging the applications that your various user types require. But that investment is a sound one. Later on down the track, you're able to use this deployment methodology whilst updating the software on it without very much stress and struggle. So when Surface ships directly to users, they have the ability then to log on to it and have Microsoft 365 using Azure AD and Intune to deploy the software, the drivers, the settings, and the policies that are required and mandated by your organization straight down to their device. That means that during a lockdown scenario or even a normal work week, as I receive a new device to my place of work, wherever that might be, as long as I have an internet connection, I can have a secure device set up by my organization with very little instruction. Now, those deployment profiles are assigned through Azure AD and Intune. Something that's very different to how this all works is that's dynamic. You're able to make those changes, make adjustments to your environment that your end users are experiencing, and that is able to happen on the fly. So that when your end user receives the device with their logon information, they're able to use that to just sign into their laptop, have the laptop pull down the policies in the way that you're expecting. Now in this example here, Anna, she's able to sign in with her work credentials that you've already sent her in anticipation of her receiving her device. And she's able to get her device set up for her right in front of her eyes. Now in this example here, we've even set up for our deployment environment to skip the requirements for you to tick off any boxes, any EULAs that might come up before the screen. Anna's profile is already launched on the device after she's set up the internet on her laptop. All she had to do was select her region, her keyboard layout, type in her password, and the Surface device was able to pull down all the configuration, apply updates, and get her ready, sign into her applications before she even reaches the desktop. Now this example here is sped up in consideration for time, but I think it really does display the difference in experience that can really take your end users from having the long and slow experience with their SOE deployed devices, all the way to having a really clean experience with Microsoft Endpoint Manager using Intune and Autopilot to deploy onto devices. Once those three ticks are found, our user is able to get to the desktop and get on with their work and finish the setup that they require. It's as simple as that. Now, during Anna's lifetime at your organization, or this organization, Contoso, she has enjoyed her work with the Surface device and she's moved on to other things. We've now set a reprovision command to the device for it to reinstall Windows and go back to the out-of-box experience, ready for the next user to log onto and use, for Rahul to log onto. Same experience for him. He's associated with this device now. His policies and applications come down to it, and the same experience can be deployed for future users as well. And of course, when you're coming to the end of life of your devices, no matter where they are, you're able to use that same command to deprovision devices and send them off to recycling. So really, what I'd love to really double down on here is the light touch that IT has with your deployed environment, with your devices, and the great experience that your end users can have. And I do want to throw out a real quick shout out to pre-provision deployment. Using Intune and Autopilot, some individuals in your organization might not have great access to internet. They might not be able to download all the applications they need to. They might be out in the outback in a mining town. You're able to use pre-provisioning. Data3 are able to set that up for you and send devices out with having already installed updates, applications, ready for an end user to sign into on day one. Now, I want to skip forward here to security just to sign off before we hand over to Brandon. Something that's really key to the Microsoft Surface ecosystem and the device sets themselves is the chip to cloud security that is unique to Surface. With the modern deployed environment, the solution is much more secure. When looking at our devices and the hardware that's installed on them, we make sure that our componentry only comes from one supplier. We control that and we make sure it's secure. In fact, we have our own deployed and built firmware. Our UEFI is made by Microsoft, where other UEFIs or other BIOSes out there might be made from a third party and purchased by the supplier of those devices. And we have full control over that. We create the operating system and we apply security patches to that regularly. And we manage our devices through the cloud too, so that any incursions that are coming onto our devices have a multi-layered protection platform so that our devices are the most secure as possible And Surface both gives a great experience, but it's also really secure for your organization to utilize. Now with that, I'll hand over to Brandon to talk a little bit more about Data 3 and modern management. Thank you.
So thanks for that, Daniel. A very detailed explanation there. Hi everyone at JuiceIT. My name is Brandon Salidi. I am a Surface device specialist here at Data 3. So today I'll be going a little bit more into why we should start to look at moving to a more modern solution and how this can work for you. And I'll also be discussing how Data 3 can assist you specifically in your endeavor of creating and moving to a modern environment. So let's get into it. So let's set the scene. At one stage, SCCM was a standard across the board in deployment. Now, obviously, when we look at something that works well, we try and see how we can further refine that standard and how we can further involve that. So let's set the scene. At one stage, SCCM was a standard across the board in deployment. Now, obviously, when we look at something that works well, we try and see how we can refine this standard and how we can further this value to make this more beneficial for not only our IT teams, but also our end users. So what we found when having a conversation with customers was that we would keep running into the same issues, and it would almost be like a song on repeat. So our customers advising the same pain points over and over again. So the core issues that we'll keep running into were the same ones as follows. So IT will always be looking to find more time in their schedule. They would like to reduce costs and manual labor. They're also looking for a way to simplify deployment methods and to rise to a best-in-class experience or best-in-class status even. Now, let's take a look about why you should consider to have a look at the complete solution. So some stats here that I'd like to go over. So 63% of all IT managers say that their resources are drained by device management. So that is a large chunk of an IT team's time that's purely dedicated just to managing devices. So 91% of employees feel that technology choices are a reflection on the company. So you can almost feel that if a company was using still like 10 or 20-year-old hardware or any type of technology, you would feel that possibly that company themselves may actually be quite outdated. And another 44% of workers would actually leave a company if a substandard technology was provided. So this leaves that you should always be working the right job for the right tools. So you would expect that best-in-class tools are given to healthcare workers and the same thing for tradies. So you would actually hope that the same thing would happen for IT teams. So now I actually like to go over a little bit about Microsoft's recent additions to their lineup. So this being the Surface Laptop 4 and the Pro 7 Plus. So Microsoft has a core offering across their range, and this being that every device entails style, mobility, and performance. Now the key factors that I want to point out on both devices is that they have all their battery lives, they still use high quality microphones and speakers, they have a removable SSD option, so this is for data retention, and fast charging. So if you do end up getting caught out, you are able to, like your phone, fast charge up to roughly 80% in just under an hour. Now, getting into the more specific points between the two devices, there are some quite exciting changes and some new returns. So regarding the Surface Laptop 4, customers can expect to find something brand new to the lineup for commercial devices. So now customers actually have access to an AMD chipset option. So this uses secure core, R5 and i7 chipsets. In saying this, Intel chipsets are still available using an 11th gen Intel processor. So you can still ensure that your work still stands out with you while using the Surface laptop. Now, regarding the Surface Pro 7, this is still your classic 2-in-1. We have an exciting return of the LTE option, however. So this now allows you to use the either embedded eSIM or your own SIM to have mobile connectivity at any time. So this still is your iconic 2-in-1 device that is still built for mobility and productivity. So now, DAS in itself can be quite confusing, or can be actually quite a lot to understand at first. So while we understand that, Data 3 has actually created a lighter version of DAS, which actually defines and includes all your modern management needs. So we refer to this as our Surface Bundles offer. Now, this essentially covers the device, its accessories, software, and any additional services such as pre-provisioning, asset pickup, and data removal at the end of a term. So Data 3 Surface bundles actually act as a new way to provide also flexible payment solutions that would avoid a large upfront investment. And payments can be made in regular installments that allows a much easier way to manage cash flow. So it's quite simple how we actually create these Surface bundles. So it works for any of your customer needs. So you simply just pick a device and any of the options that you would see here. So how do we see it from a customer's perspective? So we at Data 3 have worked with several education and commercial customers regarding how to actually move forward on their modernization of both the current deployment methods and devices. But there's a specific customer story that I'd like to actually go over and actually walk through with you at the same time. Now, when we had our first interaction with this customer, it was easy to see that they were ticking all the boxes for needing an introduction to the 21st century of deployment, management and hardware. They were experiencing much of the issues that I mentioned earlier. So more specifically, this is how we actually create a end-to-end point that actually synergizes together by adding the aspects of modern deployment, modern management, and hardware. First, we look at the device. Now, there was a need for both mobile and desk working, along with being able to take notes and images around the world around them. This made the Surface Pro 7 Plus the best fit here. So secondly, to complement the device requirement, there was actually an additional options that we could help bring together that was the best productivity outcome. So here we look at the type cover. So for when they're working either on the go or actually in the office, we actually included the Surface headsets so that you can still get the best Teams quality, but also still be able to work on the go. The Surface Pen, so that you were able to take handwritten notes and still use that as you would as a traditional piece of paper. The Surface Dock 2, so that you were able to both work at home and in your office, sit down and then hook up to actual computer screens or any accessories that are nearby. And lastly, an extended service plan, so that when they are on the move and in a mobile setting, that if they were to damage those units, they would actually be covered. So next up was the licensing. So to ensure the devices were best secured and managed, an E5 license was best fit here, as for both Intune was incorporated and same as EMS security aspects. So lastly, what was it from Data 3 that actually made our customers' life just a little bit easier? So we actually offer warehousing capabilities, and this covers Australia-wide. So this gives our customer options regarding staggered deployment and actually holding stock. So Data 3 also asset tagged all their units to actually help alleviate the manual labor that the IT department would instead have to complete themselves. As I mentioned earlier, how time is actually very limited with a lot of us. Pre-provisioning, so this actually allowed the customer to have their devices already pre-imaged and essentially only having to wait to actually have a user's credentials login to actually be ready to go. And lastly, once all their assets were actually at the end of their life cycle, Data 3 would actually organize the device to be picked up, thoroughly data wiped, and then recycled. So now I like to get a little bit more into Deploy Assist, because making any kind of change for any kind of transition can be quite daunting and very scary for all sides of organizations. And we at Data 3 understand this. We also believe that customers are entitled to receive the maximum benefit when investing into a modern setting. This is why Data 3 offers our Deploy Assist program. So this essentially is to provide funding to help with realizing this vision. This can begin with the help of setting foundations with a proof of concept. This can then move through all the way to providing end user training and adoption services to ensure that your end users and our customers are receiving the best possible experience with a modern solution. So I'd like to thank you all for attending today's Get Modern and Stay Modern session through both myself, Jaron, and Daniel. Now, if you have any questions, by all means, please reach out to your Data 3 representative, and we'll be more than happy to have a chat with you around any solutions that you have seen here or any further conversations. Thank you for your time.